Thank you. I have a double challenge because you are all, I expect, scientists dealing with open source, and I am a lawyer. So we have two different languages, so I have to explain you something which is quite complex in terms of legal issues, and that's regarding the AI Act and the open source in the AI Act. The AI Act, the regulation regarding artificial intelligence. Is there any lawyer in the assistance? Okay, just one. So it's going to be a challenge to explain you this very complex topic. So just in few words, I run a law firm. We're 10 lawyers and we're dealing with software, data, and artificial intelligence, and we're providing support to large companies and to software developers regarding their legal issue. We also implement AI governance in many large companies. Okay, and so starting with the beginning. The beginning is try to summarize a very complex text. The complex text is the AI Act. So how many of you have heard about the AI Act? Okay, so most of you, of course. AI is everywhere. And so with this text, which has been in construction for many years, the European authorities decided to rule the use of and the development of artificial intelligence. And doing this was really a huge task. And on the top of that, 2 years ago, we had the wave of ChatGPT, which obliged the European authorities to completely reframe their text and to include the generative AI. So this text is very complex. It's a text of 300 pages, and I don't know if any of the assistants, any people in the assistants have dived into this text. Is there anybody who has looked at this text? Okay, one person. Indeed, it's a very complex text, and it's not really drafted in a very easy way to understand, even for lawyers. So this is a challenge because it's going to rule all the use, all the development of AI. And as you know, because you are scientists in open source, AI, LLM, model, and the application running on the models, and the LLM and foundation are using a lot of open source, of course. So starting from this text, what we see first is that there is no definition in the text. You have a definition of open source. There is no definition of open source in the text. There is a definition, or rather a description of open source in what we call the whereas. So that means that the whereas are what is supposed to be helping the people reading the text to understand what was the purpose of the text. And this definition of open source is more or less the OSI definition, which is a good thing in my sense. But the definition is not inside the text. And regarding this text, the AI Act, what you have to understand in a nutshell is that it regards open source. It has many aspects regarding open source. It says that the open source is going to be used quite easily and in many AI systems. And it says also that the open source is not going to be under too much regulation, because the use of open source in AI is something which is very common and very easy. But when you read the text and when you understand the text in a legal way, in fact, the regulation is going to apply very strongly on the open source. Here you have a first distinction between open source use in a business way, or open source use in business, and open source use in non-business. And what you see here is that the definition of business, of open source use in business is very broad. And anytime, in a way or the other, you have monetization of the use of open source, then the regulation, the very heavy with strong obligations regarding the open source and the artificial intelligence is going to apply. And when we say AI here, if you see at the first line, it's AI components, which covers the software and data, including models, general purpose AI models, tools, even services around the AI, and processes of an AI system. So that means that this regulation is going to apply to a very large acceptation of open source. The scope of the regulation is also very broad. The scope of the regulation is very broad because it regards providers. So providers are the developers who provide an AI tool on the market, on the European market. Also users of the AI tool, okay? And it impacts, in the scope of this text, there is not only the people developing or providing tools inside the European Union, but also if they are outside of the European Union and they put an AI tool on the European Union market, or their AI tool produce a result which is used on the European market, okay? So the acceptation and the sense and the purpose of the text regarding artificial intelligence is very broad. And really, the idea of this text was to create an area of trust in Europe regarding the use of artificial intelligence, at the difference of Asia, where in China, you know, artificial intelligence is used for many things, but in particular to monitor people and to drive people. And whereas in the US, artificial intelligence is developed mainly to enhance the customer experience and to enhance the produce and service which are provided to the customers. So really, the idea of this European regulation is to try to set something in trust regarding artificial intelligence. So the scope is very broad. And if you see at the principle at the bottom of this slide, this regulation, that's one of the article of this text. This regulation does not apply to AI system released under free and open source license, referring to the OSI definition. This is the principle, but in fact, and again, when you read the text and when you understand the legal articulation of all the articles, this principle is going to be really, really, really exceptional. And most of this regulation is going to apply to AI built using open source software. Why? That's a question. You know that France has been pushing a lot on the exception regarding this text for open source because of Mistral AI. The thing is that France has been pushing a lot regarding this, and after this push, there's been a lot of lobbying, and the lobbying was in the reverse stream, and the lobbying has put many exceptions to the push of the French will. So there are so many exceptions to this principle in the text that at the end of the story, the exceptions are more important than the principle. So the general idea is that the text is going to apply to open source very broadly. Deeper in the text, and I'll try to be not too boring to you people, scientists, because that's really legal stuff, but I'll try to focus on the idea. So the principle is that the text shall not apply to open source, with the exception, and then we enter into the mechanism of the exception, with the exception of high-risk AI system or AI system, broadly understood, that falls under Article 5 or 50, okay? And we're going to see those exceptions. Article 5 is regarding prohibited AI. Prohibited AI are those very sensitive AI that you might see in movies, but that are also for real in real life, some of them. Those AI are prohibited because they have a very deep impact on the people using them or submitted to those AI. There are those kind of AI like social scoring, allowing to do social scoring or using vulnerabilities of natural people. Those kind of AIs are forbidden, okay? And so those AI when they use open source, they will be first forbidden, and if they are used, even then they are forbidden, they will be under the scope of all the regulation. Then you have a second category, which is in Article 6, and this is the core of the system. This is the core of the text regarding AI. And this category is the AI, which is called high-risk AI system. High-risk AI systems are going to be, in my sense, the most numerous and important use case regarding AI. And this category are the AI which allows to run critical infrastructure, which have an impact on education, which deals with employment, workers, and so and so. And this category has to take care of the most important obligation of this text. And last is the Article 50, and this regards the obligation of transparency, which will apply to certain to many generative AI systems. And this obligation of transparency are very heavy, very burdensome, because you have to report to European authorities regarding many aspects. You have to provide manual d'utilisation, a documentation explaining how the AI works, what was the training of the AI, what are the weight, what are the algorithm, and so and so. So you have to provide a lot of information all along the use, all along the development and the use of the AI, and the use of the AI on the market by the user. And even the user of the AI tool, even if they are not provider, they will have also to make some report to the European authorities. So, if we get back to the exception, you see there is the principle saying that the regulation will allow quite broadly the use of open source, because open source is a very good thing and it's very used and common in the development of an AI tool. But in fact, the exceptions are so numerous and so important that through the articles that we've seen, that AI, open source use in the AI will be really under all the obligations of this European text regarding AI. So here again, you see that, for instance, the transparency, the obligation of transparency regarding AI are going to apply very broadly. And for instance, here you have a reference to the systemic risk, and all the obligations are going to apply regarding generative AI when you have a systemic risk. And in this text, which is quite funny, there is a reference to the strength, to the power of the AI tool. And it's written in a very mathematic way, which is the power of the AI, where it will be considered as having a systematic risk, will be 10 to 20 power 10 puissance 25 teraflop. So I'm quite curious to see how the lawyers are going to deal with this criteria, which is quite scientist and mathematic. So what you have to understand is that regarding the transparency and the obligation of communication regarding the AI tool using open source software, is that on the left you have all the obligations which applies to usual AI tools, and on the right you have the exception saying that when you're using open source, the obligation of transparency are less important than when you don't use open source in the sense defined at the beginning. But at the end of the day, so you have less obligation of transparency, but at the end of the day, the exceptions in the text means that you still have obligation of transparency. So my recommendation is that you describe as much as possible the parameters, the weight, the model architecture, the model usage in the the license, the open source license which is used, which is in the development. So another thing that you have to remind is that you have to put in place a policy to comply with union law on copyright and related rights. You have to draw up and make publicly available a sufficiently detailed summary about the content used for training. And last, this is the last slide. You have, sorry, there was another one regarding the sanction of the text. Can I get back to the previous slide? No, okay, it's here. Here you have the sanction of the text. I'm explaining to you today the link between this text regarding AI and open source, because it is critical to understand that the sanction and the risk regarding the application of this text are quite high, and it impacts everybody developing or using an AI tool. And the most important thing here to see is the middle case, where you have failure to comply with another obligation of the regulation. So it's apart from the forbidden AI. It's really the second case. And here the sanction, obviously it's a maximum sanction, but it may apply. The bigger you are, the more the sanction will be higher. So the sanction could be up to 15 million euros, or 3% of the worldwide annual turnover. That means that not only financial impact could touch your company, but also in terms of image. If you're a large group or a large company, having this kind of condemnation, which is publicized, is really a deep impact for the company. Okay, and this is the end. So if you have any question, it's not easy because you're a scientist and I'm a lawyer and we have two different languages. And sincerely, frankly, the text regarding AI is very complex. And it is the result of bright ideas at the beginning and a lot of lobby behind that, after that. And so it is, it says something, but the result is the contrary.